go. Hey everybody, welcome back. Today we're going to do a demo on taking a monolithic website and migrating it to microservices using Kubernetes. And this is basically going to follow one of the code labs that are out there on the developers.google.com page. Basically, my goal is to just kind of walk you through the code lab and show you what's going on. This is a bit of a bigger code lab. It shows you that it takes about an hour to get it done. I'm gonna do a lot of little cuts because there are some aspects where you're sitting there waiting for a couple minutes for something to spin up or something to reflect up the DNS pipeline. But basically, it's kind of a neat little tutorial where if you have a pre-existing application, and in this case, it's a big React application, I believe. If you want to take that big singular monolithic application and split it up into a bunch of microservices, which is obviously a big thing these days. This guide will kind of get you up and running with that using something like Kubernetes. And you could take that, apply it to whatever orchestration domain you want, obviously, but we'll get it in terms of what we have with Google here. So let's check that out. Now, I've got everything kind of minimized just so it all fits on the screen. On the right here, I've got my Google Cloud console. Obviously, I'm going to be doing a lot of the work here in Cloud Shell. That's why it is so large here. And on the left is the code web that we will be working with. I'll put the link down in the description. And to keep these videos bite-sized, I'll probably split them up into like 10 to 15-minute chunks, depending on how much I have to cut out. Anyway, let's get going. So the first page is all about what microservices are, why we maybe want to go from monolithic to microlithic. Basically, what you're trying to do here is to really separate out all of your concerns that you have with an application, right? You want things compartmentalized and you want basically everything split up. That gives us some nice benefits with usability, with reusability, with scalability, and since we are in the cloud space, we can basically let everything use the cloud provider's platform of choice for, you know, making sure it's ephemeral, making sure it's scalable, and making sure we only use what we pay for too, right? We don't want to pay for one big, massive application. We just want things to scale up and scale down and pay for them as we need. So what we're going to be doing here is basically cloning down a repository. We're going to spin up some Kubernetes engines. We'll spin up some Docker images and basically, leverage the cloud for all these microservices that we have to do. So I'm just basically going to walk through this with you. Now, the next page is your kind of standard, get your project set up, get your time zone, or sorry, your region and your zone set up. One thing that I will mention, and this will also be in the description for this demo, make sure you create a brand new project for it. And the reason why is that if you don't read through this, and I'm saying this from experience, the last step for cleanup is to delete the entire project. So make sure that this project that you are doing here is a brand new, fresh project, because if you have another project where you've done all of these activities on, cleaning it up's going to kind of be a pain, and it's easier just to delete the whole thing, like they show here. So make sure that you don't have something that you're wanting to get rid of. So I'm going to go ahead and create a new project here. Cloud Apps Monolithic Converter. Sure. Good enough title. All right, this is in our billing account, an organization. Too long. CIS680 mono to micro. Beautiful. All right, we're going to let that initialize in the background here. So back to our environment setup. We're going to create a new project. Billing's been enabled. Cloud Shell has been enabled already. And we are not really going to, okay, so there we go. Let's select this as our project. And we can say Gcloud set project. Actually, let's get the actual ID here. Clear. Gcloud config list project. Yes, I know that. Okay. Gcloud config list. First thing we need to do is change over to our new project ID. Remember I mentioned we want a brand new project. We created one, I didn't copy it down. It happens. I'm just going to go up here to my list of projects and click. Here's my ID right here. Okay, so I'm just going to copy this. And over here, Gcloud config set project ID. Now we see that my project is named appropriately, and I can do all my work in here. And again, I can feel comfortable deleting everything when I'm done because it is tied to this project, right? So let's clear this out. Life is good. We have our project ID. Excuse me. One other thing we have to do is to make sure that we set the zone in the region because later on it's going to be problematic. We'll actually get a error. So maybe what I'll do is I'll leave it off for now, just like you forgot to do it, basically. But make sure you set your region and zone if you are going to go ahead and skip ahead. So first thing we need to do is clone down this GitHub repository. So I'm already in the home directory for my account, and I just overwrote my buffer, so let's copy that again. The cd tilde brings you back to your home directory if you're not already there. I'm already there. Okay, and again, if you do pwd to show you where you're working at currently in Linux, you see /home/your username. Keep forgetting selecting things in Google Cloud automatically copies and pastes it. So let's clone down this repo. So we have git clone, the link to the repository, and oh, I copied the CD as well. Sure. If we look inside of here, let me make this a little bit bigger now. Clear this out. So I'm now in this directory that I cloned. We see kind of your basic GitHub type of stuff, a license, a README, contributing, and then a whole bunch of stuff that we'll be getting to. The microservices, the monolithic application, these are already pre-built. This code lab is assuming that you have a pre-existing application, that you have a set of microservices that you are targeting. Basically, we are spinning down piece by piece that monolithic application into these web services. All right. So what we're going to do here now is we have our GitHub repo on our machine. Now we're going to run through our setup of this. So /setup.sh. All this is really going to do is install dependencies. Again, it's a React app, so it's going to need NPM modules and things of that nature. This will take a few minutes to run, so I'll probably see you in a moment. Pause for dramatic effect. So everything went successfully, hopefully as anticipated. Basically, just all of our dependencies have been set up. Things have been moved around as necessary. The React app was built. Life is, in theory, good. Magic happening behind the scenes specific to this project. You know, if you had your own application, you'd probably have your own setup scripts already in existence. So we've got that. Next step, we need to create a Gke cluster. So basically what we're doing here is we're creating a Kubernetes cluster to run from. Right, so we have a whole lot of Gcloud shell, Google Cloud shell commands. The application name is Gcloud. They were going to set, basically enable the API, create the cluster, set the region if we didn't, which we didn't, so I'm going to expect an error to happen, and then basically get things up and running. So Gcloud services enable container.googleapis.com. With our project, there is a good chance that API is not yet enabled. So we need to enable APIs that we want tied to the project, right? They're all going to be disabled by default. Not sure why that took so long, but sometimes it happens. All right, so now we're going to create our cluster, and we're just going to leave the names as default. We're going to name it Fancy Cluster. Just back up to the top. Error as expected. Basically, we haven't specified a location for this cluster to run out of. I just wanted to show you the error that it does exist. So what we can do is we can set our default zone. So let's go back to where we set up our environment and make sure that we set the correct zone. So Gcloud, move my mouse, config, set, compute/zone, US dash central 1, let's do US East 1. East 1, and then I think it's dash A. Not a valid zone. Good. Another error. Gcloud compute zones list will show you the zones that you want to set. Gcloud compute zones. And I wrote git there just out of habit. List. All right, here are all of the zones that we have available to us. That's 4-A, so let's use US East 1B. Clear. Up a couple times. Instead of US East 1-A, US East 1-B, since obviously -A doesn't exist. Okay, our zone is now up to date. Let's try creating our cluster again. So hit up a couple of times, create our fancy cluster with 3 nodes, and we have a bunch of warnings saying, what's going on with GKE. And it's going to create our cluster for us with a nifty little animation. Create, deploy,